Hi, this is Shannon, and I will be reading you selections from the Sandwich Enterprise, dated November 22nd, 2024. Our first headline is Sandwich Library Hires New Town Archivist by Taylor Frizzetti. The Sandwich Public Library has selected Jennifer R. Ratliff as the new archivist. Miss Ratliff has replaced former archivist Deborah M. Rich, who retired in July due to health issues. She grew up in Yarmouth and attended Cape Cod Community College before receiving a degree in public history from Salem State University in 2018. Miss Ratliff also holds a master's degree in library science with a concentration in archives management from Simmons University. Miss Ratliff has worked as an archives assistant at Salem State University since 2015, where she did everything from assessing items, arrangement, appraisal, processing new materials that were coming in, a lot of digitization. During her time in the role, Miss Ratliff said that the university was particularly focused on digitizing photographs. She helped to digitize a collection of approximately 70,000 Salem News historic photographs. She also worked with both high school and college students to complete their research projects. It was really fun to see young students find interest in local history and see how their lives connected to the past and what they could take away from that, Miss Ratliff said. While in Salem, Miss Ratliff worked on a passion project, researching and uncovering unmarked almshouse burial ground down to the street from her house that dated back to the 1700s and early 1800s. She advocated to memorialize those in an unmarked burial ground by erecting a stone marker on the land that has since been turned into a condominium development. Miss Ratliff was recognized by Historic Salem with a Preservation Award for her work. She also received a city seal from Salem City Council for her efforts. What was once home to Salem's poorest residents is now home to a very wealthy condominium complex with waterfront views and seeing just how the city has changed over time, but we still have elements of the past to make sure we memorialize, she said. Miss Ratliff has returned to the Cape and now lives in Barnstable. She said that she enjoys working with library staff, the friends groups, and taking in views of Main Street from her office. She has already found one aspect of Sandwich's history surprising. Miss Ratliff learned about Elvis's connection, or lack thereof, to First Church, which image is featured on his album, How Great Thou Art. That was a fun surprise that I wasn't expecting, she said. She has been working with the Friends of the Sandwich Town Archives to look at different online databases to make sure their collections make them more accessible. I'm excited to go through our photo collection because it's really varied. There's a lot of local family history in there, and there's also a lot of course, the town's history, the governmental side of the town, she said. Our next headline is Mike Miller Leaves Legacy of Service Above Self by Taylor Frizzetti. This week, Sandwich said an unexpected goodbye to a man who grew up in town and continued to leave his mark throughout the years, ensuring that his community was a safe and thriving place to live. Lifelong Sandwich resident, Select Board member, and former Chief of Police, Michael J. Miller died unexpectedly on Monday morning, November 18th. He was 72. Whether it was through his service as a police officer, Select Board member to Rotarian, or even just as a neighbor or friend, Mr. Miller touched the lives of many Sandwich residents. Mr. Miller graduated from Sandwich High School in 1970 as class president. He was also voted by his classmates to be most likely to succeed and best all around. Police Chief Jason M. Keene said that Mr. Miller was appointed as a community service officer, similar to the current role of school resource officer in 1974. He was one of the first officers on Cape Cod to fulfill a school officer role. State Representative Stephen G. Seajos said that he reached out to Mr. Miller for guidance when he started his role as the first student resource officer at Dennis Yarmouth Regional High School. Mike generously came over to Dennis Yarmouth High School and spent several hours with me sharing his wisdom and teaching me the ropes of how to be an effective student resource officer. His guidance and experience made a tremendous difference, giving me the tools I needed to succeed in that role, Representative Zarafo said. I'll never forget Mike's kindness, professionalism, and willingness to help a fellow officer. He made a lasting impact on me, and his legacy of service continues to inspire me. Mr. Miller moved up the ranks, earning the title of detective in 1996 before being promoted to sergeant in 1998. He was promoted to chief in February 2000. His primary focus when he came up as chief was to have more of a presence in the schools, Chief Keene said, adding that he took the DARE program a step further by hiring 2 school resource officers. Chief Keene added that Mr. Miller spearheaded community outreach programs such as the Citizen Police Academy. Mr. Miller's daughter, Katie M. Miller, said that oftentimes her father had to emotionally difficult cases while working at the police department. As a sergeant and later chief, he was very concerned for his officers when they would have to respond in these situations because he knew just how difficult it was to handle things sensitively for the people involved while managing one's own emotions, she said. Chief Keene said that as a select board member, Mr. Miller was public safety oriented. He always wanted to make sure he got the best equipment, the best training. We were always very grateful for that, for his support, he said. This town was just something he cared for very deeply about, and the people in it. In 2017, Mr. Miller was elected to fill a position on the Select Board and later elected as chairman in 2020. Select Board Chairman Charles M. Holden said that Mr. Miller was very passionate about a number of projects in Sandwich, including the Boardwalk Project, the relocation of the fire station and DPW building, various wastewater infrastructure projects, and most recently, the request for proposal process for the sale of the Town Hall Annex building. He always brought a logical and reasonable perspective to the issues, Mr. Holden said. He was very honest, but very outgoing and broad-based. He was receptive to everybody else's perspectives, even though he maintained one of his own. We became friends. I will miss him very much, Mr. Holden said. Select Board members Robert J. George and R. Patrick Ellis attended Henry T. Wing School with Mr. Miller. Mr. George said that he graduated with Mr. Miller in 1970. We probably spent some time together on the principal's bench, Mr. George said regarding their years at the Wing School, adding that he often played sports with Mr. Miller, including basketball and baseball. We had a lot of fun, a lot of good memories, Mr. George said. Later in life, Mr. Miller and Mr. George worked next door to each other. While Mr. Miller worked at the police department, Mr. George worked at the fire department. Both Mr. George and Mr. Miller were elected to the Select Board in 2017. Select Board member Shane T. Hochter said that as a wash-ashore, he was always appreciative of Mr. Miller's understanding of the town's history. 90% of the time, he knew the answer to the question he was asking, but he would ask it to benefit the people who didn't understand, he said. Town Manager George Bud H. Dunham highlighted Mr. Miller's sense of humor as well as his keen understanding of the town's needs. Mr. Dunham noted a number of town projects that Mr. Miller had a hand in, including renovating the library, moving town hall offices to 100 Route 6A, and creating the Center for Active Living. He was extremely proud of everything that the board accomplished while he was on board, Mr. Dunham said. There were times when the town was going through some financially difficult periods, and he was always willing to do his part to be part of the solution. He was a real team player. Mr. Dunham added that Mr. Miller was always willing to help out any town department. No matter how small or how big the issue, he was always right there to help everybody, he said. Former Select Board Chairman and fellow Rotarian David J. Sampson said that Mr. Miller joined the Rotary Club of Bourne Sandwich in 1995. He served as president for a number of years alongside Miss Miller. The motto of Rotary is service above self, which is something that Mike truly was an example of in all aspects of his life every day, Mr. Sampson said. Whether it was through his service to the town, his service in Rotary, his service to the school system, his service as the chief of police, he truly was somebody who always demonstrated service above self and went out of his way to help others. Mr. Miller could often be found behind the grill at various local events, serving hot dogs and burgers to hungry attendees as part of the Rotary's fundraising initiative. Mr. Sampson described Mr. Miller as the glue that held the food fundraising operation together. Mr. Sampson said that Mr. and Ms. Miller extensively participated in a number of Rotary initiatives, such as the Rotary Youth Exchange Program and scholarship programs. Mr. Sampson echoed Mr. Dunham's sentiment about Mr. Miller's willingness to go out of his way to help others. He recounted a time when he asked Mr. Miller if he could borrow his rototiller to use in his garden, only to come home from work to find that his garden had been rototilled. He was a lifelong Sandwich resident, a townie through and through, but he truly cared about this town and everybody in it, he said. Katie Miller said that Mr. Miller was someone who actually enjoyed helping others through physical labor, noting how up until his death, he mowed lawns for extended family members and even volunteered to mow the lawn at St. Peter's Cemetery. He would often be the first volunteer to arrive and the last to leave, she said. Katie Miller said that as president of the Sandwich High School Athletic Boosters, he spearheaded an effort to get the varsity playing fields lit for night games and headed to set up and run the first outdoor concession stand. Mr. Miller's sudden passing on the morning of special town meeting resulted in a change of plans. Instead of voting on articles in the warrant, a modest group of community members gathered in the Sandwich Middle High School auditorium to pay their respects. Father Jack Schrader read Psalm 23, asking audience members to keep his wife, Susan F. Miller, and family in their thoughts. Mike was the definition of service and dedication. It is a great loss for all of us, Father Schrader said. Select Board Chairman Charles M. Holden then made a motion to dissolve the meeting. The meeting adjourned at 7:04 p.m. Town Manager George Bud H. Dunham said the meeting will be rescheduled, but no date has been chosen yet. With the holiday season almost here, he said, it is likely the meeting will have to wait until January or February. Town Clerk Taylor D. White said that because this vacancy on the Select Board has occurred within 8 months from the spring election, that a special election is not needed to fill the position. The position will remain vacant until someone is elected to fill the role on May 8th. In addition to his wife of 50 years, Mr. Miller leaves 2 children, Katie Miller and Kevin Miller, 2 grandchildren, and 5 siblings. The Michael J. Miller donation account for civic improvements has been established by the town in support of his family's wishes to ensure that his dedication to civic efforts can continue in the community. Donations can be brought or mailed to Town of Sandwich, attention, Treasurer/Collector, 100 Route 6A, Sandwich, Massachusetts, 02563. Our next headline is PBS's Molly of Denali features Mashpee Wampanoag member by Lauren Surby. Lauren Surby. A Mashpee Wampanoag tribal member got the opportunity to advise on a PBS Kids show after 2 years in the making. When GBH called Kitty Hendricks Miller to advise on an episode of the PBS series Molly of Denali, she knew she wanted to be a part of it. I started watching Molly and saw the wardrobe and the little details and thought, somebody really worked on this show and made sure they were being respectful of all these things and true to the people that they were representing, Miss Hendricks Miller said over a Zoom call with GBH. Creative producer Yatabae Evans and the Enterprise on Wednesday evening. When I was contacted to do this, I was really thrilled to be a part of it. I had watched Molly before. Miss Hendricks Miller is the Indian Education Coordinator for the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe. She worked closely with Miss Evans, who serves as creative producer of the show. It's important to include the Wampanoag's perspective, Miss Evans said on Wednesday. We reached out to Kitty, and thankfully she was willing to work with us. She helped to really provide a lot of background knowledge to our writers that you can see within the episode. Molly of Denali follows a young girl, Molly Mabray, and her friends adventuring through Denali, Alaska. She lives in the fictional town of Kya, where she meets many friends, including Mashpee Wampanoag tribal member Gertie. When Molly and her friends ask what Wampanoag means, Gertie tells them, people of the first light, because we're the first to see the sunrise. When Molly and her friends, there's a first time for everything, and this was really a great learning experience working on a platform, Miss Hendricks Miller said. It felt good to have my thoughts and perspectives respected and valued. It was great that folks valued that look of representing the Wampanoags. In fact, Gertie is actually named after Miss Hendricks Miller. I'm from the Otter clan, from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe on Cape Cod, Gertie said as she introduced herself to Molly and her friends. I am called Nanawita. Miss Hendricks Miller's spirit name is also Nanawita. Some people call it an Indian name. I like to refer it as my spirit name, Miss Hendricks Miller said. It's a journey for everybody in the way that they can receive their name, and it's really special. I try to introduce myself as a member of my mother's clan and my native name, and then my given name. Children from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe were so excited to see a representative of their tribe on television, according to Miss Hendricks Miller. My niece is like Auntie Kitty. It's one of the Wampanoags on Molly, Miss Hendricks Miller said. Having that Wampanoag in there for impressionable young kids, it's important that they form their worldview then, which is when it's best. In the episode, Gertie teaches Molly and her friends to plant a Three Sisters garden and joins them for their Thanksgiving. Miss Evans and Miss Hendricks Miller both said that they felt like this episode is a good educational tool for families and teachers. We call this time Native November, Miss Hendricks Miller said. It's very political in its own way because of the nature of why people reach out to us this time of year. Miss Evans, who is a member of the Athabascan tribe from the village of Mentasia, Alaska, agreed with Miss Hendricks Miller. As indigenous people, we're not monolithic, Miss Evans said. We have different cultures, different languages, different ways of being, and particularly around the Thanksgiving holiday, we recognize it in different capacities. Miss Evans' personal hope for the episode is that viewers can see that though everyone is different, we all share similar internal values. A lot of people in this town of Mashpee, which is our ancestral homeland for the Mashpee Wampanoag, don't even know that we're there, Miss Hendricks Miller said. This is your backyard, and here we are. Just knowing to educate your neighbors is really what it's all about, Miss Hendricks Miller added. And any which way we can get it, there is great, especially with the way that we worked with GBH on this project. Miss Evans said that it is especially important to have Mashpee Wampanoag representation because WGBH is located in Massachusetts. This is the first time we've really had indigenous cultures outside of Alaska to be a part of Molly of Denali, Miss Evans said. And what a big story to tell, right? Our next headline is Cape and Islands Groups Unite to Defeat Pine-Killing Beetles by Tayo Wolf. The humble pitch pine, arguably Cape Cod's most recognizable tree, has a natural defense against harmful insects. It produces extra resin, which it sends to its infested areas to push pests off its surface. It works well when there are a limited number of bugs, but in the past year, many of the pitch pines of Martha's Vineyard have been defeated by the southern pine beetle, which overwhelms the trees in great numbers, bores into the bark, shuts off the tree's flow of food and water, and kills its host. Last week, about 40 officials from state and local environmental regulators, conservation trusts, and nature-based environmental groups toured one of the Martha's Vineyard damaged areas at Sheriff's Meadows Phillips Preserve near Lake Tashmoo. Among the visitors was William J. Poirier, Director of Stewardship for the 300 Committee Land Trust, a Falmouth-based nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting and preserving natural lands. It's only a matter of time before we start seeing them here, Mr. Poirier said in a telephone interview this week. And once they arrive in earnest, they will hurt the Cape's forests. They can take out an individual tree in 2 to 6 weeks, Mr. Poirier said. The 300 Committee Land Trust, as well as the other concerned organizations, are working on a plan to protect the Cape's pitch pines from the beetles, Mr. Poirier said. But it is not an easy task. New Jersey, which has had an infestation for 10 years, has tried various techniques without much success, Mr. Poirier said. The Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation, which organized the Vineyard Forest Tour on November 13th, last year discovered the pine needles on Nantucket, and in Manuel F. Cornelius State Forest in West Tisbury. Southern pine beetle infestations begin when adult females select a host tree, bore through its bark and into the interphloem, and then emit a scent, or pheromone, which invites thousands of other pine beetles, male and female, to join the attack, according to the DCR website. The distressed tree responds by pushing out its defensive resin, but the insects' numbers are too great to be fought off by the pitch pine, Mr. Poirier said. The insects are tiny, maybe 1/20th of a pinky nail, but there are so many of them, he said. The southern pine beetle is native to the southern U.S., but has expanded its range northward due to the rising temperatures of climate change. Last summer was the first time the DCR, which monitors the state's forests, saw significant infestations, according to the website. Several days of freezing temperatures could kill them off, Mr. Poirier said, but the Cape has experienced fewer and fewer cold winters. The DCR hopes to work with the environmental organizations to devise a plan for managing the infestations, which will involve cutting down trees to decrease the insect populations. Removing some of the trees disrupts the chemicals that cause the beetles to aggregate and attack trees, the DCR website says. We need to enact a plan quickly, and it will be a collaborative effort, Mr. Poirier said. Right now we are in the research stage. DCR has employed the cutting method, cutting trees and spacing the pitch pines further apart on the vineyard with some success. If left unchecked, the outbreak will expand, and the beetles could spread to other pitch pine stands in the state forest or adjacent private lands, the DCR website says. The removal of trees also helps prevent forest fires, the website said. The pitch pine is an ideal tree for sandy soil, and although it grows in New Jersey, Long Island, and elsewhere in the Northeast, It is the Cape's signature tree, wrote Sandwich Conservation Trust President John Nye Cullity in a piece published by the Provincetown Conservation Trust. I think the pitch pine is given the least respect of our native trees. It is a signature tree of Cape Cod, growing in dry, barren areas, even in the white sands of a beach. Any tree that can fill this role in nature has my admiration, Mr. Cullity wrote. This scraggly tree is full of sticky pitch when cut in warm weather, rots quickly when in contact with the soil, and is shunned as firewood when anything better is available. They also have a shallow root system and tend to blow over in storms. But crows love to roost and nest in these trees, and I have seen hawks and owls perched on a dead limb, looking for prey, he said. The sound of wind blowing through a pitch pine grove is particularly beautiful. When conditions are right, it may be the closest thing to singing that trees can achieve. Our next story article is, MCAS is no longer a graduation requirement. What does that mean for Sandwich students? By Taylor Frizzetti. With Massachusetts voters deciding to remove the MCAS as a high school graduation requirement, Sandwich Superintendent Joseph P. Marusak said that he has received numerous questions regarding what it means for Sandwich students. Dr. Marusak addressed these concerns during the school committee meeting on Wednesday. He said that while the MCAS test will still be administered, passing the test will no longer be a requirement for graduation, starting with students in the class of 2025. I am not terribly concerned about our world at Sandwich Middle High School, Dr. Marusak said. In fact, we did not have any members of our senior class that were in jeopardy of not graduating due to MCAS. However, students will still need to earn a competency determination in order to graduate. Dr. Marusak said it is likely the state will look at the completion of Mass Core program courses, which include 4 units of English, 4 units of math, 3 units of a lab-based science, and others as a minimum requirement for graduation. At the current time, the high school already does meet the Mass Core, Dr. Marusak said. He said he will keep the school committee informed of any changes or if a new performance-based assessment will be implemented in lieu of the MCAS. School Committee Vice Chairman Kevin R. Serault asked if eliminating the MCAS as a graduation requirement will result in any policy changes. The guidance we have been given as superintendent is to convene your policy subcommittee, and we do have policy that states explicitly that MCAS is a requirement for high school graduation. So we will have to amend that, Dr. Marusak said. In addition to passing MCAS, there were already additional competency requirements in terms of passing certain courses, a certain number of courses in different departments, correct? School committee member Christine Brown asked. Dr. Marusak said that what Ms. Brown said was correct and that those requirements will stay in place. Our next article is Littlest Christmas Tree Lighting Set for December 1st. The Sandwich Foundation continues the town's long history by celebrating the lighting of the littlest Christmas tree on Sunday, December 1st. The community is invited to join in the reading of the Thornton Burgess story as the little tree on Shawnee Pond lights up for the first time this season. The event will begin at 3 p.m. at 2 Water Street, Sandwich, with festive activities for families to enjoy. It will continue with a reading of Thornton Burgess's Littlest Christmas Tree at 4:15 p.m., followed by the lighting of the tree by Sandwich resident Hans Ferner, age 7. This is a free family event and will be held rain, snow, or shine. Our next article is How the Library Uses Weston Memorial Funds by Taylor Frizzetti. A donation to be used to help the Sandwich Public Library's budget was established 117 years ago, but specific rules were put in place to ensure that the money would only be used for its intended purpose. The Sandwich Public Library Board of Trustees met with Finance Director William Jennings and Weston Memorial Fund trustees to answer some of their questions regarding how the town interacts with the Weston Fund on Tuesday. The Weston Memorial Fund was established during the 1907 annual town meeting. The initial funds were donated by Sophia H. Weston for the purpose of establishing and maintaining a library. I would start by saying how grateful the town is for the Weston Fund and what a tremendous service they do for this town, Mr. Jennings said. My guess is the general public does not realize what an important role the Weston Fund has served, not only now, but over the years. Mr. Jennings explained that the Weston Fund is outside of the town's control and is listed under its own separate tax ID. The fund is strictly managed by the Weston Memorial Fund trustees. However, Library Director Diane M. Castigliola has the ability to tap into the funds if needed. He added that income generated by the Weston Fund is earmarked specifically for the library and cannot be used for other town department needs. Mr. Jennings said that there is roughly $138,000 in the Weston account. Portions of the Weston Fund are often used to supplement the library's budget each year. Mr. Jennings said that if there is an increase in the library's operational budget, often caused by hiring personnel that cannot be covered fully by tax revenue, then a portion of Weston funds will be utilized to bridge the gap. The fund is doing well, and the income generated by the fund is fantastic, he said. Our next article is Glasstown Cultural District Steering Committee discusses potential plans to improve Thornton Burgess Park, by Taylor Fuzzetti. During a brainstorming session on Wednesday, the Glasstown Cultural District Steering Committee discussed the possibility of revamping Thornton Burgess Park. Sandwich Chamber of Commerce Director Christine Ross presented the idea of updating the space next to the Hoxie House to potentially offer a space for plein air painting sessions, nonprofit gatherings, and other community events. It is just such a picturesque spot in Sandwich. There is just so much opportunity to do great things down there, Ms. Ross said. The plan, which is still in its infancy, proposes adding stairs with railings from the corner of the Hoxie House parking lot and potentially from the sidewalk on the far side of the park to make the area more accessible. Ms. Ross suggested possibly partnering with an Eagle Scout candidate or a local landscaping company to help complete the work. Additionally, she suggested creative additions such as bronze animal sculptures inspired by Thornton Burgess's work, similar to Boston's Make Way to Dumpling sculpture, and planting a tree dedicated to the author. Heritage Museum and Gardens president Anne Scott Putney suggested having a call for public art to be installed in the park, rather than having all of the installations being Thornton Burgess themed. Committee Chairwoman Paula Johnson added that the Visitor Services Board could be asked to help with funding. The committee plans to meet with Director of Community and Development, Leanne Drake, to discuss potential next steps. Our next article is Lottery for Wing School Housing Development Plan to Open in Spring, by Taylor Fuzzetti. The lottery process to select residents for the 128 units of affordable senior housing at the former Henry T. Wing School site is planned to open between March 1st and May 1st. Assistant Town Manager Heather B. Harper said that if construction goes as planned, advertising for the lottery process will begin on March 1st. Tentatively, lottery applications will be accepted from March to May. It is anticipated that the lottery will be held in May 2025. If everything remains on track, the project will receive a certificate of occupancy in September 2025. The project dates back to 2012, when town officials began considering the school and the possibilities for the property as a solution to the town's needs for its aging population. The Henry T. Wing School officially closed in 2015, and students were relocated to the Oak Ridge and Forestdale schools. Stratford Capital Group was selected as the developer for the project in 2019. They purchased the property from the town for $1,265,000 in May 2024. The Henry T. Wing School was first built in 1927. It originally educated students from kindergarten to grade 12. Our next article is Playbook Initiative Aims to Create Upstanders by Taylor Frusetti. Students at Sandwich Middle High School are teaming up to help curb bullying in the schools. Juniors Shreya V. Shukla and Peter S. Milburn discussed their work on the Playbook Initiative with peer leaders during the school's committee meeting on Wednesday. The Playbook Initiative is a program co-sponsored by Project 351 and the Boston Celtics Shamrock Foundation. The program aims to limit incidences of harassment and bullying. Shreya explained that instead of outlining game strategies or plays, the Playbook Initiative outlines best practices on what to do when a student encounters bullying or harassment. The program first guides students to recognize bullying and harassment and its negative effects. The second step is to take action. The program includes different bullying scenarios and offers actions that students can take to be an upstander. Shreya said that the goal of the program and the workshops is to help students be more comfortable in those situations, giving them more power to do the right thing during a real-life incident. Shreya and Peter were trained at a Playbook Initiative Summit in Boston, with Celtics player Jrue Holiday in attendance, to facilitate workshops on the program. Since then, the duo has held multiple workshops on how to combat discrimination and bias with Sandwich students, including 7th graders. Shreya said middle schoolers are the targeted group for the initiative. The pair, along with trained peer leaders, then took some of the 7th graders who attended the workshop to Oak Ridge School, where they provided an overview of the program to 5th and 6th graders. Students were given scenarios that demonstrated discrimination ranging from race to sexual orientation discrimination. They were then asked a series of questions about the scenario, after which intervention examples were given and discussed. Peter said Oak Ridge students were engaged during the workshops and participated with a high level of energy. The group plans to hold a workshop for 7th and 8th graders on Wednesday, November 27th. Our next article is Joint Base Cleanup Team Integrates New EPA Requirements by Taylor Frusetti. The U.S. Air Force is integrating new Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, requirements to its cleanup efforts at Joint Base Cape Cod. On April 26, 2024, the EPA published a finalized National Primary Drinking Water Regulation that established national drinking water standards for certain per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS. Exposure to PFAS may cause significant health issues, such as decreased fertility and an increased risk of cancer. PFAS are a group of manufactured chemicals found in drinking water, soil, household products, and fire extinguishing foam. The new requirements, which took years to finalize, consist of making the maximum contamination levels, MCLs, of PFAS found in groundwater and drinking water 4 parts per trillion. Robert Lima of the EPA explained that MCLs were developed in an effort to set cleanup goals for contaminated water. The Air Force previously used the state's MCL requirement of 20 parts per trillion in its cleanup efforts. Mr. Lima said that because the federal MCL is lower than the state's MCL, it is more protective. The process to collect the data will remain the same. However, Mr. Lima said that the new requirements may warrant cleanup teams to return to previously investigated cleanup sites because under the new requirements, the affected area may be bigger than what was previously believed. Additionally, work such as well drilling, sampling, and analysis will be conducted. The U.S. Air Force is currently incorporating the new requirements into its cleanup initiative. Next article is Collaborative selects new director. On Thursday, the Cape Cod Collaborative Board of Directors announced that Hope Hanscom, Assistant Superintendent of Mashpee Public School since 2017, has accepted the position of Executive Director. She will begin her new role on January 1st. The Collaborative is an educational organization providing instructional and support services to the students, parents, and public school staff of 19 member districts. Dr. Hanscom previously served as Assistant Superintendent and Director of Special Education in West Bridgewater, a Principal and Program Coordinator at North River Collaborative, and a Special Education teacher in Brookline. She earned an undergraduate degree from the College of Holy Cross, a master's degree from Dowling College, a CAGS from Bridgewater State University, and a doctorate in education from Northeastern University. She received the President's Award from the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents in May and the Assistant Superintendent Leadership Award in July. She succeeds Paul Hilton, who is retiring after serving for 14 years. Our next article is Triple M Cuts Ribbon, Officially Opening New Building by Lauren Serby. Mashpee's marijuana dispensary on Echo Road has finally opened its new building after years of construction, zoning bylaws, and approvals from Mashpee's Select Board and the Cape Cod Commission. Triple M, the cannabis dispensary on Echo Road, celebrated the opening of its new building with a ribbon cutting and a grand opening on Monday morning. Among those present to celebrate the grand opening were Mashpee's Chamber of Commerce, various Select Board members, including Chairwoman Carol A. Sherman and member John J. Cotton, and longtime resident and civic leader Mary J. LeClaire. "What a beautiful facility," Ms. Sherman said. Inside the building, Triple M was written in big, bold letters outlined in plant vines. Samples of the store's seltzers sat on a table at the center of the room, and diverse Triple M products from edibles to vaporizers were in cases for customers to browse. "This has been in the works for years," Ms. LeClaire told the Enterprise. "We started this in 2015. Ms. LeClaire had the honor of cutting the ribbon outside the building on Monday morning. The Chamber of Commerce requested that she be the one to do it because of her significant role in working to get the project underway. "I'm very interested in medical marijuana," Ms. LeClaire said. "I was a big part of this when it started. I truly believe that medical marijuana will help people with addiction. It has helped those with glaucoma and with Parkinson's. People who couldn't drive from Parkinson's can drive now because of medical marijuana." Triple M sells both recreational and medical marijuana. Both are sold in the same room but are marked with dividers. 2 stations are for medical marijuana and 4 are for recreational marijuana. The right-hand side of the room handles medical, while the left-hand side manages recreational marijuana. "I was the last person to speak at the table when we passed this, and I was originally dead set against it," Select Board member John J. Cotton said. "I was looking at it from a dad perspective." Mr. Cotton said that since then he has been trying to convince family members to partake in medical marijuana for their health. Triple M was originally approved in 2015 to have a host committee agreement with the town. Town manager Rodney C. Collins was Mashpee's police chief at the time, and Miss LeClaire did much of the heavy lifting to get the agreement approved. As of June, Mashpee has collected $1.3 million from the host community agreement. In August 2020, the Zoning Board approved M3 Ventures, doing business as Triple M, to add 2 temporary wings to the building's medical-only facility. The board also gave Triple M permission to start recreational marijuana sales from the temporary wings while constructing an extension to the existing building for long-term use. Triple M is holding a week-long celebration of the grand opening with diverse activities and incentives for customers, including live music from Cape Cod's Brian Sance on Thursday and Plymouth's Hitchmaster Flex on Friday. Cape Cod Donuts will be on site Thursday through Saturday morning, and discounts on telehealth medical marijuana certifications from medical marijuana telehealth provider Creating Well-Being will be available. Visit Triple M's website for more details on local events and offerings. Our next article is Comcast awards $30,000 grant to Elder Services for Digital Equity. During a Wednesday event at the Elder Services of Cape Cod in the Islands facility, Comcast announced a $30,000 digital equity grant to support the organization's technology training and digital navigators programs. The funding will continue support for Senior Planet, the organization's technology training program for seniors, and will also enable the 2025 launch of a digital navigator program to expand digital skills training to more Cape seniors, including those who require in-home assistance or are homebound. The grant is part of a Project UP, Comcast's $1 billion commitment to advance digital equity through programs and community partnerships that connect people to the Internet, advance economic mobility, and open doors for the next generation of innovators, entrepreneurs, storytellers, and creators. Thanks to Comcast's support, we're empowering more than 300 Cape Cod seniors with tech training and launching Digital Navigator Access in 2025, both at councils on aging and in-home. Said Mary Ann Ryan, Chief Executive Officer of Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands. These initiatives will help improve the well-being of participants by empowering them through digital training and education. We have a long-standing commitment to Cape Cod, and we understand the important role that the Internet and digital literacy play, said Caroline Hannon, Senior Vice President of Comcast New England Region. We are particularly proud to support Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands to ensure more senior residents have the training and resources they need to thrive in an increasingly digital world. In addition to ongoing partnerships with local nonprofits, earlier this year, Comcast upgraded its network in Falmouth, offering 2 gigabit per second download speeds and up to 10 times faster upload speeds to all its customers over the already existing homes and business connections. Over the past 3 years, the company has provided more than $54 million in cash and in-kind contributions to 238 nonprofits in Massachusetts. This investment includes digital equity programs such as Internet Essentials, Lift Zones, and Digital Navigators. Since its inception in 2011, Comcast's Internet Essentials has connected more than 732,000 low-income Massachusetts residents to broadband service at home. Additionally, Comcast has launched 76 Lift Zones in Massachusetts to provide free, high-speed Wi-Fi and digital skills training at local community centers to promote digital learning. For additional information on Project UP and Comcast digital equity initiatives, visit corporate.comcast.com/impact/project-up. Obituaries. Vale Pagliarani of Sandwich, a graduate of Bourne High School, died unexpectedly at home on November 8th. He was 78. Born to Joseph A. Pagliarani and Annie J. Eardley, he grew up in Sagamore and graduated from Bourne High School in 1964 and Butera School of Art in Boston in 1967. His lifelong passions were painting and chess. He was a professional New England coastal marine and landscape artist and a far too serious chess competitor, according to fellow Plainville Chess Club members. He leaves his sister, Raina Provost of Richlands, North Carolina, a stepbrother, Joseph Pagliarani, Jr. of Sagamore, and several nieces, nephews, and cousins. Services were held in Sandwich on November 16th. Other obituaries. Virginia Bourne, 95, of Stuart, Florida, died on November 8th. Stephen F. Brunner, 83, of West Falmouth, died on November 16. Lynn A. Davison, 69, of North Falmouth, died on November 6. Malcolm J. Doherty, of Falmouth, died on November 9. Sean T. Doyle, 65, of Sagamore Beach, died on November 16. Lauren C. Hendricks, 49, of East Falmouth, died on November 17. Gerard P. Laboute, 98, of Mashpee, died on November 17. Ernest H. Mayberry, 85, of Falmouth, died on November 15. Patricia McGoldrick, 85, of Bourne in Falmouth, died on November 15. Michael Mello, 77, of Hilton Head, South Carolina, died on November 1st. Dana A. Palmer, 73, of Bourndale, died on November 16. Ricky J. Pottle, 62, of Buzzards Bay, died on October 30. Carol Schwab, 90, of Falmouth, died on November 18. Our next article is Turkle Ball Sign Up by Rich McClone. Registration is open for Thanksgiving Turkle Ball, a pickleball tournament hosted by Cape Cod Church at 8 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day, November 28. All proceeds will benefit for the Falmouth Service Center, which serves Falmouth, Mashpee, and Joint Base Cape Cod. Players can sign up at turkleball.eventbrite.com. The cost is $25, and all participants will receive an event t-shirt. Players should bring their own paddles. The tournament will be single elimination, and games will be played in teams of 2. Participants can sign up as a team or a free agent. Individual sign-ups will be paired with a teammate. All games will be played on outdoor courts. After the tournament, courts will open for free play until 10 a.m. Players of all ages are welcome. Gameplay will be organized across age brackets for ages 16 and over, or participants can opt to enter an intergenerational bracket. Free parking will be available at Cape Cod Church at 1205 Nathan Ellis Highway, Route 151, in East Falmouth. Tournament registration will begin at 7 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning. A guided practice round will be held at 7:30 a.m. and the tournament will begin at 8 a.m. The event will last roughly 2 hours. Coffee, hot chocolate, and water will be available during the tournament. Our next article is Massachusetts National Guardsman indicted in federal court by Amy Rothman. A Massachusetts National Guardsman based in Sandwich has been indicted by a federal grand jury for possession and distribution of child pornography. Nicholas Wells, 43, a Master Sergeant in the 102 Security Forces at Otis Air Force National Guard Base, was indicted on Thursday after his initial court appearance in Boston on October 24. The U.S. Attorney's Office said that after a search warrant was executed, it is alleged that more than 300 images and 100 videos depicting child pornography were discovered on Mr. Wells' phone, and there is evidence that more than 70 videos were distributed to others. If convicted, the charges of possession of child pornography can be matched up to 20 years in prison and at least 5 years of supervised release, and a fine of up to $250,000. The charge of distribution of child pornography can lead to a sentence of no less than 5 years and no more than 20 years in prison, and a fine of up to $250,000. Acting U.S. Attorney Joshua S. Levy and Jody Cohen, Special Agent in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Boston Division, announced the indictment. Prosecutors say Massachusetts State Police provided valuable assistance alongside the Sandwich and Barnstable Police Departments. Brian J. Sullivan, Assistant U.S. Attorney of the Major Crimes Unit, is prosecuting the case. Our next article, Two Miners Med-Flighted to Boston by Katie Nelson. Two Med-Flight helicopters were requested for two separate incidents involving miners in Sandwich on Friday evening, November 15. Both miners were transported to Forestdale School and taken via helicopter to trauma centers in Boston. After 4 p.m., the Sandwich Fire Department responded to a call for an infant who fell down a set of stairs on Ryder Road. Another Med-Flight helicopter was called in around 4:30 p.m. for a toddler who suffered an injury on a playground on Quaker Meeting House Road. The child reportedly had a broken femur and was taken to Boston. Our next article, Operation ELF seeks local help. Operation ELF, Everybody Loves Families, which provides holiday gifts to New England children in need by facilitating the connection between gift givers and the children whose wishes they fulfill, has opened a drop-off location in Falmouth. Janine Spellman, an Operation ELF staff member who grew up in Bourne, has been a volunteer with the organization for more than 20 years. We get the actual wish lists from the children and teens and match them with local sponsors who want to shop for them, Ms. Spellman said. Although we protect the privacy of the children, I always feel very connected to the children that I shop for. It's so much more personal than just buying toys. The Andover-based nonprofit has provided holiday gifts for 24 years. It seeks people willing to shop for a child's holiday wish, spending around $40 to $60 per child. Operation ELF partners with local community agencies that assess each child's situation prior to including them in the ELF program. Each child, or their responsible adult, writes a list of what they want as holiday gifts, and Operation ELF matches the children's wishes with sponsors, who shop to fulfill each child's request. Operation ELF volunteers open their homes or businesses as drop-off locations for the gifts, and this is the first year for the Falmouth location. In 2023, Operation ELF delivered gifts for 1,362 children in need. The goal in 2024 is to fulfill the wishes of 1,500 children. To participate, sponsors can sign up at operationelf.org. We have some time for arts, culture, and living. Article, Meeting House Clay Center will host Holiday Market. The Meeting House Clay Center will transform into a high-end ceramics and fine craft gallery to celebrate the holiday season on Saturday and Sunday, November 30 and December 1st. With wheels and clay tucked aside and tables decked in black cloth, sparkling lights and ceramics, jewelry, handmade cards, and original art, all made by Cape Cod artists, the 4th annual holiday market will take place on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Hot apple cider will be available. Included in the roster will be the ceramics of Shannon Gallagher, Brenda Kerr, Heather Ramp, Amber York, and Margot Critchfield, all resident artists at the Meeting House. Visitors can see their studios on the lower level of the Meeting House, not just at the sale, but year-round. There will also be a host of invited and guest artists, including the delicate jewelry of Alyssa Sullivan, who stamps her pieces with inspirational and humorous messages, the intricate beadwork of Kim Collins, and handmade holiday cards by Sarah Kerr. Shelley Finley of North Falmouth will be bringing her porcelain work, which features hues of seafoam and blues. Katie Taylor will be at the sale with her delicate porcelain and gold jewelry that celebrates and elevates the forms of local beach finds into wearable art. Also selling their works will be Meeting House advanced students Julia Delisle and Kim DeWall. Wristlet key rings by Three Kings will be new addition this year. The Meeting House Clay Center is at 1340 County Road in Katamet. Well, that is all that I have time for. I'm wishing everybody a lovely week as we get ourselves ready for Thanksgiving celebrations. Thank you so much